Welcome into Wednesday's edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by Pios Stream, as we are with you Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live, and available to watch on demand anytime at youtube.com/lcpios, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, members of our alumni base, and members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community as well. Hi there, I'm Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We're the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the Northwest Conference, competing with other institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington. 19 intercollegiate athletic programs competing for the Pioneers at the NCAA Division III level, with over 430 institutions nationwide, a chance for our student athletes to compete on a national scale. And today we'll have our second straight conversation with a current student athlete, a senior in fact, as in a few minutes we'll bring in Hannah Martin, a senior for women's basketball, and talk about her transition to Lewis and Clark as a transfer junior a year ago, and then certainly a transition into the fall 2020 semester. Right now, basketball practice looking differently, fall classes looking differently. So how is everything going for her? And then we'll look at what the future holds for Hannah too. We'll discuss social justice and some of the things that women's basketball specifically is doing in some ways that she feels is important for us to learn how to do a good job as a community and address systemic racism in our society. She was one of the first student athletes I was able to talk to in June when the George Floyd murder occurred. And I got some really good insight into things that we can be doing in the small ways with things like lcpioneers.com Live. And I'm super grateful that I had a chance to talk to her early on. So stay tuned. We'll have Hannah in just a few minutes. We do encourage you to get involved through our Facebook Live comments. You can do so by just posting something in the comments below, or anytime you can email us sports@lclark.edu and have a chance to give us thoughts on upcoming guests. If you have a suggestion for someone you want to see on the show, we'd love to have that feedback. Again, that's at sports@lclark.edu. You can also reach us anytime, Twitter and Instagram, LC Pioneers, on both of those platforms as well. And yesterday we had a chance to talk to Ramez Atia of men's tennis. He and Matt Brown from men's basketball were winners of the Invent Oregon competition. A lot of positive things from Ramez in regards to the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. So you can see that interview as well as all of our past shows at youtube.com/lcpios. And cannot thank our community enough for the Day of Champions. It was last Tuesday, October 20th, raised over $109,000 for our programs, over 440 donors collectively, helping our 19 intercollegiate teams have success. We certainly appreciate everyone who stepped up to help us there. And our Homecoming at Home celebration continues as well. Even though we can't get together on Palatine Hill and have an opportunity to spend homecoming and family weekend like normal, certainly enjoying some of the virtual events that our alumni office has been putting on. Thanks to everyone who joined us for some of our athletics events earlier on in the month. It truly has been the best of a different situation with Homecoming at Home, and still some events this week. So be sure to check that out at go.lclark.edu/homecoming. So let's bring in our guest for today, a senior for women's basketball, a chance to bring in Hannah Martin and talk a little bit about women's hoops and the future and such on lcpioneers.com Live. Hannah, thanks for taking time to join us on Wednesday and spend some time talking about a range of things. But let's start with right now, just how are you doing? There's a lot going on in the fall 2020. Practice is looking differently. How has it been for you so far?
It's been very interesting. Not what I thought my senior year would look like, but I'm just staying really positive, and I'm happy that we're practicing. And I'm in Portland right now, so I'm attending some in-person classes and the whole hybrid thing. So I'm happy to be around my friends and my teammates and in Portland while the weather is still nice and not too rainy. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Portland right now, you have pumpkin patch weather and all of those kind of things that's normally going on. It's cooler, it's crisp. I'm curious, hybrid model, what are some of the ways that you've had to adjust with classes? What's different specifically in the classroom with the fall 2020 semester so far?
Mhm. Well, with hybrid classes, it takes a lot of organization, like on the student side and the teacher side. And I feel like Lewis and Clark in particular has done a really good job of like using Moodle and different platforms to really help the students out and connect with teachers like whenever we need to. Um, and sometimes I would have Zoom for a couple days a week, and then I would have in-person classes. And I think it's a really good mix because obviously with the coronavirus, we can't always be in classes, we can't always be like around a bunch of people. So I'm really lucky that I have some classes that I can go and have discussions with people face to face, but still have the safety of being online.
I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about kind of how the practices are looking. I want to clean up some audio. It sounds a little muffled. So let's do that. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back with more. Hannah Martin joining us on lcpioneers.com live.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for joining us on Wednesday, October 28th, 2020. We're talking to Hannah Martin, a senior for Lewis and Clark women's basketball. And we left off, Hannah, describing some of the differences with classes. What about with practice? Going into your senior year of women's basketball, how do the practices look in the middle of a pandemic?
So practices are very interesting. We have no contact right now, but we're lucky enough to be able to have all of the players in the gym at the same time. We just have to wear masks and try to keep our distance as much as possible. Again, not exactly what I thought my senior practices would be, but we're still having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of shooting contests, a lot of skill work, working on our defenses, and we just started working on our offenses yesterday or 2 days ago, which is really exciting. And we have a bunch of new freshmen, so just finding ways to incorporate them while still keeping our safety as our top priority. So yeah.
And you're the lone senior coming back, which was the case last year too with Blythe, but you were significant clearly with second in points, second in rebounds, such a key addition to Lewis and Clark. So how do you view your role maybe as you were expecting possibly going into your senior year of being that lone senior, but now with the pandemic, how has that leadership role kind of shifted in a way?
My leadership role right now just consists of really staying positive in practice and communicating and cheering everybody on, because we're all going through the same thing. Like, we're all wishing we have a season, we're all wishing for the best, but at the moment, the only thing we can control is practice and going hard at practice. So I just try my best to give 100% and stay positive and cheer on my teammates and help the freshmen out in any type of way. Yeah.
Describe to us what initially brought you to Lewis and Clark. As I mentioned, a transfer junior and impactful right away. What was it about the opportunity to compete at Lewis and Clark that drew you to Portland?
So when I came on my visit to Lewis and Clark, I only came to Portland for AAU tournaments, so I haven't really spent time. But when I came on my visit and I met all my teammates and all the coaches, I just felt like instant connection with them. And everybody was just so funny and positive and just loving everything about basketball and being on the court. And coming from the environment that I was coming from, that's exactly what I was looking for. I just wanted to have fun, and I just wanted to be around a fun environment. So when I came to LC, that's the expectation I had, and that's what happened last season, and that's just kind of what drew me to LC.
So describe, and maybe elaborate's the right word, about this team. What is it about your group that really makes it fun and makes the sport of basketball something that's an enjoyable experience for you?
I think everybody's just super supportive, and I know last year my confidence wasn't as strong as it is now, but throughout that whole process of season and practices, I felt so much support from every single person on the team, including the coaches. And we're all just kind of weird, so we kind of just like all play off each other, like joking around, but still taking basketball really seriously when we get on the court. But like on bus trips and stuff, like we have so much fun. We're like laughing and all this stuff. But when we have to be serious, we are, and we just do what we have to do. So yeah.
Talking to Hannah Martin, a senior for women's basketball on lcpioneers.com live. And earlier in the summer, with the murder of George Floyd, there was a response from many areas of Lewis and Clark, specifically with athletics. I was involved in that primarily, and you were one of the first people I reached out to. I appreciate you so much taking the time when I called. What is women's basketball, when you look at some of the ways that your team is having an impact when it comes to systemic racism and social justice? What are some of the ways that you've seen your team come through so far in the fall?
Well, throughout the summer, when all the protests started happening and it started to be in the media a lot more, we try to have as many conversations as possible around racism, about systematic racism, about police brutality and everything like that. And we didn't really shy away from it. And I think that's really important, what needs to happen. And I think our team has done a good job of supporting the Black players on our team, and also trying to find ways in Portland to support Black community members and also just different groups. And also, I don't know if you can like see the sweatshirt, but it's the Black Lives Matter sweatshirt, and it's from like our own team. And that's something that Coach K did, because I've had so many talks with coaches, because we don't have a lot of Black players on our team, but I felt supported by our team. I felt supported by our coaches, and this sweatshirt, just like shows up for me, and I wear it all the time. And seeing my teammates walk around campus with it just really signifies like solidarity with like, us in the Black community.
I'm going to share a link to the Instagram post where you showed off the Black Lives Matter sweatshirts that your team has from the LC Pios WBB Instagram. I'll share that right now in the chat. And when I approached things in June, I came from an area of understanding better what the idea of not racist versus anti-racist is. And that's the lens that I viewed this through. And one of the things that I've really found helpful is the education component. And when we've had other Black student athletes on our show, that is one element that they've made sure to emphasize. How do you see education being a role in the way that, you know, Lewis and Clark, the Portland community at large, can help change the way that systemic racism has been an issue in our country?
Yeah, I think education is the most important thing, especially right now, because it's easy to stay in your own bubble, and it's easy to not acknowledge a lot of stuff about race when you don't really have to. But if you keep on putting in that effort to get educated, to get in conversations, to get in discussions, that's when change really happens. And I feel like LC as a whole community does a good job of like sending emails about different discussions or activities that you can do to kind of educate yourself and connect with other people who can educate you. And I know like on our team, a lot of people took steps over the summer, just reading more articles, like watching documentaries, doing all that stuff. And for me personally, that made me more comfortable being around them and like having them in my environment, because they're open for our change. They're open to get educated. And that's what the biggest step is right now.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live, presented by Pios Streamer on Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. Big thanks to Jackie Jones saying in our chat, yay, Hannah, great leader, great person, and I can't agree with that more. In your first year, the one thing that's fun about being the play-by-play voice is a lot of times basketball season is where I get to know your team the best, and that's something that stood out about getting to know you, is that leadership quality and someone who, pre-game shoot around and such, I could get a smile from and some excitement. And I'm eager for your senior season, whenever that is. Right now, the Northwest Conference suspending games until at least January 1st. So let's talk about some of the future then for you when it comes to the academic side. Describe your major, but also describe some of the paths that you see yourself going post-graduation.
My major is rhetoric and media studies, and um, yeah, it's just a major that just dives into communications and also like argumentative classes and different stuff like that. And my goal for after graduation is to attend law school and go into sports law. I don't know exactly what in sports law yet, but I've just been networking as much as possible, especially with the coronavirus. Everybody's kind of just willing to help out in any type of way. So that's like with LinkedIn or through other people. And I think that's just been helping me the most, just learning about the different paths I can take. But yeah, my goal for after graduation is to become a sports lawyer.
What is it about the idea of sports law that attracts you to that field and makes you feel like maybe you can have an impact in that world?
Um, on my mom's side, all of her family mostly is lawyers, so I've always been around that environment, and I always thought it was just like, oh, the criminal law, but I didn't know a lot about sports law until maybe my freshman year of college. And when I was researching it, it just I had this instant connection to everything that it was about, whether it was sports management or a general counsel at like a sports business or on a sports team. Everything about it just drew me to it, and since then I just couldn't get myself to detach from that. So I felt like that's what I meant to do, and like that's what I want to pursue. So yeah.
I mean, you're getting all sorts of kudos in our chat. Haley Parker is here. Paris Wilkie is here.
That's my old, yeah, those are all my friends from my old school. So
But it shows the
thanks a lot,
impact.
guys.
Clearly, you have all these people who can't say enough good things about you on our chat, which is fantastic. I love it because I like seeing the comments for sure. And maybe a little bit of a segue into some celebration. The Lakers are NBA champions,
Yeah.
and I know that is gotta ring true. But then you have the Dodgers winning a World Series last night. How's it feel to be an LA sports fan right now?
It's amazing because I was in New Hampshire, so I had to hear about the Patriots winning all the time. So I'm happy that I have some bragging rights with the Lakers. So yeah, it's just really awesome because I've been around the Lakers when they were really good and really bad, and so it's just a lot of pride in LA right now. And I wish I could be home to like celebrate in any type of way we can. But yeah, bragging to my friends is pretty great. So.
Well, and professional basketball in LA is something you have experience with through internship opportunities, and it sounds like you've been very active in seeking out opportunities for internships. Describe the opportunity you've had to work with LA professional basketball.
So I had an internship with the LA Sparks, and that really was my foot in the door to sports. I just found the application online, and I just remember going to Sparks games almost every summer. Like we just have season tickets, everything. So I knew this position would be perfect for me because I've been to the games, all this stuff. So I was a game day operations and entertainment intern. So basically, if you think about the in-game hosts, like the DJs and mascots, and all that fun stuff at like halftime and timeouts, we basically helped run the show for that. So that had a script and everything like that. And it was just such a fun environment because like you got to see like fans react to like your certain activations and just different things like that. And I remember like being a little kid sitting in the audience, just like watching all this stuff happen, and I'm like helping it run and stuff like that. And my boss, Vanelle, was just amazing, and she kind of took me under her wing and brought me into the front office so I could see everything working and just everything like that. So it was just such an awesome experience, and I still have so many friends and connections from that experience on the Sparks. Hopefully, that all the fans and all that stuff can come back, so I can maybe come back and visit and help out the new interns and everything like that. But it was just such an amazing experience.
Well, we certainly are lucky to have you on our campus and be part of our community, not only for what you do on the basketball floor, but like I said, these comments show that exact thing as you make an impact on people everywhere you go. And I certainly have felt that myself. Hannah Martin, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. Share a little bit about what the fall's been like on lcpioneers.com live.
All right. Thank you so much.
That's Hannah Martin. Really fun conversation and a really impactful person. She talked about there was an opportunity with the NCAA that she's expecting to have over the summer as well. That had to get pushed back because of the pandemic. But when you look at opportunities to work with professional basketball in LA and then to have an opportunity with the NCAA and some of her aspirations when it comes to sports law, she just seems like one of those people who you have no doubt going to be successful in life. I mean, she came in and immediately impacted the whole department and certainly the women's basketball program. So I'm not surprised to see, Scott Pasapia, the assistant coach, the senior of this program for Lewis and Clark. And like I said, I certainly appreciated her time early on in the summer, but more so just appreciate her being part of our community because, she's super impactful and I'm thankful for that. So we're doing the best we can with microphones. I think that this is one of those interviews where I've said it a lot. You have opportunities to talk to people, but we're doing this from originally my bedroom. Now I'm in my garage. She's signing on through FaceTime on a laptop, and we're dealing with producers and having the clearest of microphones all the time. And certainly what she was talking about throughout the course of the interview, it deserved better audio, but hopefully I can either clean it up a little bit as much as I can, but hopefully you also got the gist of it too. We'll definitely have her back on at some point before the end of the run, before the end of the school year for sure. But that was certainly an enjoyable conversation and worthwhile. Thank you to Hannah Martin for joining us today. Second to last show of the week, we're going to have Sam Taylor on coming up tomorrow. Sam is the head coach of men's and women's rowing. We'll talk to him about what the season looks like for a team that has practice facilities pretty conveniently located to Lewis and Clark, but certainly not on campus. It's across the Selwood Bridge. And so with everything happening because of the pandemic, kind of get a feel for what's going on with Sam's programs. And we'll certainly talk to him about that coming up tomorrow on lcpioneers.com live. Other than that, that's been our show for the day. Hannah, super impactful. And there's an interviewer in Portland named John Canzano. He's a longtime Oregonian newspaper writer, but he got onto one of the radio stations and has a show called The Bald-Faced Truth. And John is a really great columnist, but one thing that has always stood out to me with his radio show is when he sits there and listens to his guests, you can feel that passion about areas where his guests might inspire him or make him excited about something. And I guess honestly, that's how I'm feeling currently with Hannah, because we haven't had her on for an in-depth interview. We've had her on post games, and I could feel like that vibe from her in terms of her impact on people in those interviews. But right now, it reminds me of John Canzano, where I'm just sitting there like, that's such great stuff. I can't rave enough about it. So, and so I don't ramble. I'm going to go and sign off. But the show has been so helpful to me throughout the course of the pandemic. I hope that it has been as helpful to you to stay connected to people. It's something that we want to continue even when games start happening on the normal timeline that we've been accustomed to for decades upon decades. But that was a perfect example as to why it needs to exist and why we need to have an opportunity to share with you all of the great things that Lewis and Clark student athletes provide this world. Because that's the tradition, right? Lewis and Clark's athletics tradition is how student athletes go on to be successful, no matter what success looks like to them. And Hannah seemed to certainly clarify that for me. So I'm going to go. My name is Ryan Goff. We appreciate you joining us on lcpioneers.com live. And we will see you again tomorrow at 11:30, as we do Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. Check out all of the past shows available on demand at youtube.com/lcpios. Until then, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I think everyone should take Intro to Chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai though. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was International Affairs, just Intro to International Affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.